Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. We are here with today's lecture, that is drugs for the treatment of diabetes mellitus. We would be covering this topic in two lectures and one part would be covered today. Before moving on to today's lecture, first of all, let's have a quick recall what we did in previous two lectures. We discussed about the pathophysiology of diabetes, its different types, etiological factors, and the role of insulin, and all about insulin. In all about insulin comes its synthesis, its mechanism of action, its types, its clinical uses, which are also called indications, and adverse effects. So let's move on what we have to cover in today's lecture. So the learning objectives of this lecture would be that students should be able to classify antidiabetic drugs. They should write about the mechanism of action, adverse effects, and clinical uses of any two major classes in the part 1. And in the next part, we'll be discussing all about the other classes of antidiabetic drugs. So oral hypoglycemic are basically given to the patients with type 2 diabetes and which have two physiological defects. Number one, abnormal insulin secretion, or there is release of insulin but there is resistance to its action. So in this slide, you can well appreciate the various sites of action of oral antidiabetic drugs. Basically in the pancreas, in the muscles and fats, in the gut, in the liver. These are the major target sites for the oral hypoglycemic drugs. And let's have a look where they are acting. This diagram is very important to understand the mechanism of action or the site of the action of the various drugs. And as you can clearly well appreciate, in the pancreas, sulfonylureas, ganates, and DPP4 inhibitors, they cause increased release of insulin from the pancreas. So these drugs are called secretagogues. Those drugs which increase the secretion of insulin are called secretagogues. Then in the muscle and fat, where one of the cause of type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance. So thiazolidinediones and biogonides, they improve this insulin resistance and thereby decreasing the blood glucose level. Similarly, alpha glucosidase inhibitors and bigonides again target the intestine and help in the elimination of the glucose and decrease the blood glucose level by interfering with the glucose absorption. In the liver, there is increased hepatic production of glucose. So this is affected by the bigonides, thiazolidinediones, and DPP4 inhibitors. All these drugs help to maintain a healthy blood glucose level. So with that, we will move on to the classification of oral anti-diabetic drugs. So they are classified into number one, insulin secretagogues, which are sulfonylurea. Sulfonylureas have further two generations, first and second. Then number two, we have miglenidides, and number three, d-phenylalanine derivatives. This next group is bigonides. Number third is thiazolidinediones. Number four, alpha glucosidase inhibitors. Number five, amylin analogs. Number six, glucagon-like peptide. And number seven is dipeptidyl peptidase 4 inhibitors. We'll be taking these drug groups one by one. First of all, we will be covering insulin secretagogues. As you have seen the site of action of these drugs, they are basically targeting the pancreatic beta cells. They are causing the increased release of or secretion of insulin. Okay? So they are divided into generations. In the first generation, we have tolbutamide, chlorpropamide, tolazamide. In the second generation, we have all the drugs whose names are starting from G, like glyburide, also called glepanclamide, glipizide, gliclazide, and glimepiride. So with sulfonylureas, we'll be starting today's lecture. So students, in this slide, you can well appreciate the classification of sulfonylureas, which is our first drug group, which are also called secretagogues. Number one, first generation, second generation. In first generation, you have short acting, intermediate, and long acting. Whereas in second generation, you have short acting and long acting. amongst the short acting in first generation we have tolbutamide, intermediate में है acetohexamide and tolazamide, in long acting we have chlorpropamide. Then in second generation short in acting we have glipizide, and longer duration of action we have glyburide and glimepiride. These generations are very important. First of all, you have to remember the whatever the drug book is, whenever there is new generation, it has more advantages as compared to the previous generation. So let's see there what are the differences between first and second generation sulfonyl ureas. So this is the first generation sulfonyl urea compounds, in which you can see the comparison between the various drugs. So the important thing is they all are well absorbed from the GIT. Their metabolism is good. Whereas if the metabolites are seen, there are unusual more metabolites of acetohexamide and tolazamide, which are active metabolites. Whereas in chlorpropamide and tolbutamide, they have inactive metabolites. Then regarding the duration of action, since chlorpropamide is a long half-life of about 24 to 40 hours. That is why it is classified as long-acting sulfonyl ureas, and all of them are excreted through urine. So this is good for patients with renal impairment. Which drugs are good for renal impairments? Which do not have an active metabolites. So tolbutamide and chlorpropamide, they have inactive metabolites, so they can be well adjusted in patients with renal impairment. However, in those patients where there is renal excretion, there is formation of active metabolites, they expect a long half-life. Now, if we compare the second generation, we can see that they are also well absorbed, their metabolism is good, and there is inactive metabolites. Half-life is according to their duration of action, that is 3 to 4 hours, 3 hours, and 5 to 9 hours. Similarly, they are excreted through urine. Regarding the mechanism of action of sulfonyl ureas, it is causing the release of insulin from the beta cells, hence it's a secretagogue, reduction of serum glucagon concentration, and thirdly, it causes potentiation of insulin action on the target tissues. So let's see how the sulfonyl ureas act. This is the diagram which shows the mechanism of action of sulfonyl urea. So let's have a closer look. Whenever the glucose enters inside the pancreatic beta cells through the GLUT, which is the glucose transporter 2, there is conversion of glucose into glucose 6-phosphate and there is production of ATP. So what happens that the sulfonyl urea bind to the and close the ATP sensitive potassium channels on the cell membranes of the pancreatic beta cells, which in turn depolarizes the cell. How? By preventing the potassium from exiting, and this depolarization leads to the opening of the calcium channels. And this is how the insulin is released from the storage vesicles. It's a very, very important mechanism of action, repeatedly being asked in the exams as well, the mechanism of action of sulfonyl urea. So all of you, your assignment for today's lecture is to draw a diagram showing the mechanism of action of sulfonyl ureas. So this is again the mechanism of action of sulfonyl urea. You can clearly see how sulfonyl ureas are causing the closure of the ATP sensitive potassium channels. Once again, the same thing. This is the ATP sensitive potassium channels, and glucose is entering into the cell through GLUT, and there is the closure of this ATP sensitive potassium channels by sulfonyl ureas, which leads to depolarization and entry of calcium and the release of insulin from the secretory granules. This is insulin. So this is why the secretagogues are those drugs which cause increased secretion of insulin from the secretory granules, and sulfonyl ureas are secretagogues. This is another diagram or a flow chart showing the mechanism of action of these drug groups, and it's a very important question And in your assignment, you have to draw any of the mechanisms which I have showed you, whichever you feel it's best explanatory for the examiner as well. So keep in mind that it's a question of about 4 marks. Write down how sulfonylureas act on the pancreatic beta cells, or you can be asked what is the mechanism of action of sulfonylureas, or you can be asked why sulfonylureas are called secretagogues. So all the answers are same to the different questions. So regarding the side effects of sulfonylureas, we have nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain and diarrhea, hypoglycemia because they are causing the release of insulin and insulin leads to hypoglycemia. Similarly, dilutional hyponatremia and water intoxication is specifically seen with chlorpropamide, which is a long-acting sulfonylurea. Then disulfiram-like reaction. If these drug groups are taken with alcohol, you have gone through the chapter of CNS depressants in which we have covered in detail about alcohol. So we'll be discussing what is revising rather what is disulfiram-like reaction, and it is also seen with chlorpropamide. Weight gain because of insulin. They also affect the blood dyscrasis. They cause agranulocytosis, hemolytic anemia, thrombocytopenia. So in this students, you can have a quick flashback. You have to answer कि which drug causes agranulocytosis and hemolytic anemia and thrombocytopenia. You have covered these adverse effects. So this is another question. One assignment is you have to draw the mechanism of action of sulfonylureas, and second question is can name one drug which causes these adverse effects separately. Then cholestatic obstructive jaundice is also seen with sulfonylurea, although it's an uncommon effect. Then dermatitis, it's mild, and muscle weakness, headache and vertigo, and allergy. Allergic reaction specifically, you have to remember that these drugs are sulfur derivatives. So, if a person is allergic to any sulfur compounds, he would be allergic to other sulfur drugs as well. So, sulfonylureas, thiazide diuretics, then carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, and in loop we have furosemide. They are all sulfur derivatives, and in antibiotics we have sulfonamides. They are also sulfur derivatives. If a person is allergic to sulfur, he won't be able to tolerate any of these sulfur drugs. So this is very important. Keep in mind. So what is disulfiram-like reaction? As you have already covered in alcohol, ethyl alcohol when metabolized gets converted into acetaldehyde in the presence of enzyme alcohol dehydrogenase. Then acetaldehyde is converted into acetate in the presence of enzyme acetaldehyde dehydrogenase. And acetate is converted into carbon dioxide and water. This is the normal which is happening with the alcohol. So what is now disulfiram? Disulfiram is basically given to those patients who want to give up alcohol. Okay. So what happens then whenever they take alcohol, they are asked to take this disulfiram as well. This disulfiram is basically what it's doing, it is inhibiting the enzyme acetaldehyde dehydrogenase. So what will happen? In return, there would be no formation of acetic acid, rather there would be accumulation of acetaldehyde, and there would be severe adverse effect because of accumulation of this component, and this is called disulfiram like reaction. Although this is disulfiram is causing these effects, but few drugs they cause disulfiram like reaction, and one of them are sulfonylureas because they act as disulfiram and inhibit acetaldehyde dehydrogenase enzyme. So if a person is diabetic and he takes sulfonylureas and he drinks alcohol along with it, so he is going to suffer from disulfiram like reaction. And let's see what the signs and symptoms of that reaction. So in which you have flushing of skin, accelerated heart rate, shortness of breath, nausea, vomiting, throbbing headache, visual disturbances, mental confusion, postural fainting, and circulatory collapse. So you have to keep in mind if a person is alcoholic and he has to take any other medication along with it, it cannot be sulfonylureas because it will lead to disulfiram-like reaction. Similarly, in chemotherapy, we'll be discussing about cephalosporins, which are antibiotics. They also act like disulfiram because they inhibit this enzyme and lead to accumulation of acetaldehyde. So this is a very important short question as well as MCQ. कि what is disulfiram like reaction directly पूछा जा सकता है, and there can be a scenario in which after the patient taking any oral hypoglycemic drug and he was also taking alcohol and he had severe headache, or you can be asked कि excessive vomiting के साथ present किया है. So what is the मैनेजमेंट ऑफ दिस पेशेंट. ठीक है, सबसे पहले तो ये है कि यू हैव टू स्टॉप द ड्रग. ठीक है, एंड यू हैव टू एजुकेट द पेशेंट दैट दिस ड्रग इज having action which is similar to that of disulfiram, so you should not take alcohol with this drug group. Regarding the contraindications of sulfonylureas, it's type 1 diabetes because it's insulin dependent. And if there is dysfunction of the pancreatic beta cells and there is absolute deficiency of insulin, so there is no use of giving sulfonylureas because sulfonylureas cause the secretion of insulin in the functional pancreatic beta cells. Then, if there is parenchymal disease of the liver or the kidney, pregnancy and lactation. So now we move on to the drug interactions of sulfonylureas. There are few drugs which when given along with sulfonylureas can augment the hypoglycemic action of sulfonylureas. So let's have a look. Warfarin, sulfonamides, salicylates, phenylbutazone, propranolol, alcohol, chloramphenicol, and fluconazole. This is a very important list of drugs which can affect the metabolism of sulfonylureas, not only this way, but also they can displace them from plasma protein binding sites like warfarin. Then sulfonamides, if given with sulfonylureas, can cause sulfa drug allergy. Similarly, alcoholism. If there is acute alcoholism, then there is enzyme inhibition, and if there is chronic alcoholism, which will lead to enzyme induction. So these are the drug interactions. Similarly, there is another list of drugs which can antagonize the hypoglycemic action of sulfonylureas. How? Diuretics like thiazide and furosemide because they are also sulfur derivatives. Then diazoxide, corticosteroids, oral contraceptive pills, phenytoin, phenobarbital, rifampicin, and alcohol. These are the list of the drugs which are enzyme inducers. So hereby, what are they going to do? They are going to enhance the metabolism of sulfonylureas and thereby antagonizing its efficacy and diminishing its activity as a hypoglycemic agent. So be careful when you're giving sulfonylureas along with these drugs. Drugs other than sulfonylurea. So far, if you recall, we have covered sulfonylureas, and now we are left with another secretagogues which are meglinotides, in which we have repaglinide and neticlinide. Meglinotides. Examples are repaglinide, neticlinide. They are taken orally, they have rapid absorption, half-life is about 1 hour and duration is about 4 to 5 hours. So regarding the mechanism of action of meglinotides, it is same as that of sulfonylureas. That is, they bind to the ATP sensitive potassium channels as that of the sulfonylureas, and they cause insulin release from the pancreatic beta cells. So regarding the clinical uses, how does they differ from sulfonylureas? First of all, they are approved as monotherapy and in combination with metformin in type 2 diabetic patients. They are taken before meal and do not offer any advantage over sulfonylureas. However, only advantage of meglinotides, which are also secretagogues, they differ or they have a merit over sulfonylurea is that if a patient is allergic to sulfonylureas because of sulfur drug allergy, in this case, you can safely give meglinotides. Side effects are similar to that of sulfonylureas: hypoglycemia, weight gain, and caution in patients with renal and hepatic impairment. So you can be asked in an MCQ if a patient you have to give a secretagogue and he is allergic to sulfa group, then which is the drug of choice? So you can easily mention that meglinotides are to be given in this case. And students, I want to clarify one thing. They in the type 2 diabetic patients, there are many types of presentations. Sometimes a patient is obese, sometimes is thin and lean. So we have covered sulfonylureas, and as you can see in its adverse effects, they cause weight gain and they cause hypoglycemia. So in a patient who is obese, you will prefer bigonides, which is metformin, because they are euglycemic and they cause the weight loss. Whereas sulfonylureas, they cause weight gain. So in a thin, lean patient, you will prefer sulfonylureas. So you can be asked in an MCQ or a short essay question when it is asked in a scenario based, if a person is obese and he comes with type 2 diabetes, and you have to make a choice, the physician as a physician, to start which drug as a monotherapy. So in case of obese patient, you will go for bigonides, which is metformin, and in case of a thin lean patient, you have to go for secretagogues, in which there is sulfonylureas. And if the patient is allergic to sulfa components, then you will go for meglitides. Our next drug group is bigonides for diabetes. And the only bigonide used clinically nowadays is metformin, which is our oral hypoglycemic drugs. And what are bigonides? Basically, these are organic compounds and they are colorless solid that dissolves in water to give highly basic solution. So you can be asked in Viva, okay, what is the structure of metformin? So you can say they are called bigonides. I'll be sharing the structure in the next slide. So bigonides examples are metformin, and it previously fenformin and buformin was also used, but they had some severe adverse effect. That is why only metformin is used nowadays. It's given orally and it has got no binding to plasma proteins, not metabolized, and excreted unchanged in the urine. And half-life is about 2 hours. This is the structure of metformin, showing that it's a bigonide and it's consisting of a basic solution and hydrolyzed to ammonia and urea. Regarding its mechanism of action, it's very important from examination point of view. It increases the peripheral glucose utilization, inhibits gluconeogenesis, which is AMP kinase dependent, and number thirdly, it impairs absorption of glucose from the gut. We'll have a look at the picture showing the mechanism of action of these drug groups that would make a better understanding for you. So what is metformin? It's basically an oral antidiabetic drug, belongs to biguanide class and only available drug in this class, and it activates the AMP dependent protein kinase, which is called AMPK. The primary site of action of metformin is in the liver as shown in this picture. There is the gluconeogenesis, which is inhibited by AMPK, which is AMP dependent protein kinase. This step is activated by metformin, that it activates AMPK dependent inhibition of gluconeogenesis. And the primary action is there is decreased glucose production. So remember one thing, site of action is liver, it inhibits gluconeogenesis. How does it inhibit? Because it activates the AMPK. Okay? Other actions can, it increases the blood glucose uptake, it increases insulin sensitivity, increases fatty acid oxidation, and decreases intestinal glucose absorption. And these drugs are called euglycemic because they do not cause hypoglycemia. Why they are not causing hypoglycemia? Because they do not cause the release of insulin from the pancreas, unlike sulfonylureas, as these were secretagogues. In this picture, you can well appreciate the detailed mechanism of action of metformin. It enters into the cell, the hepatic cell, through the OCT1 transporter. OCT1 is an organic cationic transporter, and in which it enters into the mitochondrial electron complex and stimulates the AMP kinase, which in turn has actions that suppresses the gluconeogenesis gene expression, and secondly, it increases the level of lactate, ठीक है, and leading to decreased hepatic glucose production, right? So what is happening, this all of this is happening in the liver. There is basically decrease in gluconeogenesis, there is decreased hepatic glucose production, and increase in lactate level. But remember one thing, if a patient is having a severely compromised renal function or he is hypoxic, then only there would be increased level of lactic acid leading to lactic acidosis. Not normally under therapeutic dose, it does not cause lactic acidosis. There is increase in lactate in a very little proportion. So this is another MCQ. What is the adverse effect of metformin that is potentially fatal but rare? Remember one thing. Some drugs have common adverse effects and some have rare adverse effects. You have to write the common adverse effects first. So in common adverse effects, we'll be discussing that it has main target site of action is on the GIT. But the rare adverse effect is lactic acidosis. But once it happens, it is very lethal, and its clearance is from the kidney. It is excreted unchanged in the urine, 100% renal clearance. So this mechanism is very important. As I told you earlier, it is asked in your examination, both sulfonylureas and metformin. The mechanism is very important, and kindly draw a flow chart of metformin for in your notebook so that you can get practice on its mechanism of action. Again, the same thing. Metformin is targeting the intestine, the liver, and the skeletal muscles, and there it causes the decreased production of glucose. How? By a mild inhibition of mitochondrial respiratory chain complex, decreases intestinal absorption of glucose, and thirdly, antioxidative properties of metformin on the endothelial cells. So there are some advantages of metformin over sulfonylureas. That is why this metformin is considered to be the first line drug for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. Whenever a patient comes to you, there are different steps. If he is newly diagnosed type 2 diabetic, then you have to manage the patient accordingly. You start it with dietary modifications and exercise, and then we move on to the drugs. First, we start with monotherapy. If the patient is not getting response, then we may add another drug. And then, if still the patient is unable to control his blood glucose level, then we increase the dose of the drug. ठीक है, so diabetes is a disease in which every patient, every person responds differently, right? So we have to be very careful. This is called basically personalized treatment. ठीक है, कि आप लोगों को किसी कोई patient is suitable for metformin. Some patients cannot tolerate metformin. They have to take sulfonylureas or some newer drugs which we'll be discussing. So you have to keep in mind according to each person's weight and other dietary intake habits, you have to modify the drugs as well. So advantages of metformin over sulfonylureas are: it does not cause hypoglycemia since it is not a secretagogue. It does not result in weight gain, and so it is ideal for obese patients, okay, because it causes weight loss, and but it is a euglycemic as it does not affect the blood glucose level. So this can be asked in your MCQ. Which anti-diabetic drug is euglycemic? So you will opt for bigonides or thiazolidine diones. Side effects. The most prominent adverse effects of metformin are on the GIT. Number one, you have to keep in mind, don't start your adverse effect from lactic acidosis. That is a rare adverse effect and only seen in those patients where there is renal or hepatic failure, not in all the patients because it's the most commonly prescribed drug in Pakistan. Okay? So metallic taste in the mouth, GIT, intolerance which comprises of anorexia, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal discomfort. Okay? It also causes vitamin B12 deficiency, but not usually, but on chronic use, and lactic acidosis. Rare but fatal. So only one drug up till now, I guess you have studied in pharmacology, so much course has been covered that causes lactic acidosis. So it's again a side word, lactic acidosis and metformin. Fatigue, reduced appetite, stomach, abdominal discomfort, tingling in the palms and feet, anxiety, weight gain, diarrhea, blurred vision, muscle pains, and hair loss. These are adverse effects of metformin, which are common adverse effects. Tingling and in the palms and feet are because of its vitamin B12 deficiency. So this is pathophysiology for how it causes lactic acidosis, which we have already covered. Contraindication means in which patients we don't have to prescribe bigonides. Number one, those who have hepatic impairment because the main site of action of bigonides is in the liver. As you just saw, it inhibits gluconeogenesis. Renal impairment because its excretion is through the kidney. Alcoholism and heart failure. All these then compromise your conditions which may lead to lactic acidosis because they create hypoxic conditions. So that is why you have to be very careful while prescribing bigonides. So these are few contraindications to its use. Indications. Those conditions in which you have to give the drug. Specifically, obese patient with type 2 diabetes, alone or in combination with sulfonylureas, ठीक है. The major indication of bigonides are in type 2 diabetes and specifically in obese. You will won't opt this drug in thin and lean, ठीक है, because it causes weight loss or does not affect the weight, but they are preferred in obese patients because these bigonides are also used for the treatment of obesity and especially for polycystic ovarian syndrome because they are thought to be because of insulin resistance, and these bigonides they increase the insulin sensitivity. So other clinical uses of bigonides apart from diabetes are also asked in your exam, and it's a very important SCQ as well as MCQ. So polycystic ovarian syndrome, fatty liver, obesity, and as anti-cancer drug also it is used. So बच्चों, this is very important short SCQ clinical uses of metformin other than diabetes. Thank you very much, students, for listening to me and being with me. So that was all for today's lecture. In this lecture, we have covered about classification of oral hypoglycemic drugs, about sulfonylureas and meglinotides, which are our secretagogues. Then we discussed about bigonides, in which we discussed about metformin, its mechanism of action, adverse effects, indications other than diabetes, and its contraindications. So kindly submit your assignments on your respective WhatsApp group, and we will see you tomorrow with the next oral diabetic drugs, and we will compile those. And in the next lecture, we'll discuss about few MCQs related to this topic. Take care. Allah Hafiz.